You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today: St George's Day, 23rd of April 2014. Oxford Muslim grooming gang update, Operation Bullfinch, £3 million and counting. 4 Bradford men face charges of sexual offences and trafficking against 13-year-old girl. Breast ironing, girls have chests flattened out to disguise the onset of puberty. British officials looking into killing of 18-year-old in Syria. Italian Navy rescues hundreds more migrants. Netherlands, immigrants bullied into leaving the Hague district, mayor pledges action. I'm no kafar and the mainstream media and our politicians and more. Times are so tough in Italy that the mafiosi are considering getting jobs. Japan's whalers want to return to sea soon. India recognises the third gender. Thought for the day, our land of milk and honey. And finally, elderly couple visiting the Holy Land. UK news. Oxford Muslim grooming gang update, Operation Bullfinch, £3 million and counting. Adam, our Abingdon contact, provides a summary of the Oxford Mail article on Operation Bullfinch. This week we find out that the investigation into the Muslim child sex exploitation in Oxford has cost us more than £3 million. After an 18-week trial at the Old Bailey last year, 7 men were jailed for a total of 95 years for grooming and abusing girls in council care. Last year, 7 members of a gang that raped, prostituted and sexually abused young girls in Oxford were handed sentences totalling 95 years after a trial at the Old Bailey. Anjam Dogar, jailed for a minimum of 17 years for rape, facilitating child prostitution and sex trafficking. Akhtar Dogar, jailed for a minimum of 17 years for rape, facilitating child prostitution and sex trafficking. Bassam Karar, jailed for a minimum of 15 years for rape, facilitating child prostitution and sex trafficking. Mohammed Shapal, jailed for a minimum of 20 years for rape, sex trafficking and serious sexual assault. The British National Party knows that prison has a poor record for reducing reoffending, and 47% of adults are reconvicted within 1 year of release, according to the government's own figures. The average annual overall cost for a prison place in England and Wales for the financial year 2011-2012 was £37,648, and reoffending by all recent ex-prisoners in 2007-2008 cost the economy between £9.5 and £13 billion. World date, but still the establishment view that is cheap for keeping Muslims happy. 4 Bradford men face charges of sexual offences and trafficking against 13-year-old girl. 5 men, including 4 from Bradford, will appear at Sheffield Crown Court later this month to face charges of sexual offences and trafficking against a 13-year-old girl. Shakeal Rehmen, 26, of Haworth Road, Bradford, has been charged with rape and trafficking the girl, who cannot be identified. Mohammed Shapal, 21, also of Haworth Road, and Yaseen Amini, 36, of Broadway, Bradford, have been charged with sexual activity with a child and trafficking. Usman Ali, 20, of St Mary's Road, Manningham, have been charged with sexual activity with a child. The 5th defendant, Bekir Rasheed, 35, of Ulverston Road, Woodseats, Sheffield, has been charged with trafficking. All 5 men have been remanded in custody by Sheffield magistrates to appear before the city's Crown Court on Monday, April 28th. World date, and on these crimes will go. They will continue until the politicians in this country have their sons and daughters subjected to this foul abuse. Breast ironing, girls have chests flattened out to disguise the onset of puberty. A hidden form of abuse known as breast ironing, in which girls as young as 10 have their chests pounded with hot objects to disguise the onset of puberty, could be taking place in Britain. The mutilation is a traditional practice from Cameroon designed to deter unwanted male attention, pregnancy and rape by delaying the signs that a girl is becoming a woman. Experts believe the custom is being practised amongst the several thousand Cameroonians now living here. World date, it may be a painful custom in Cameroon, but it is at least one that began where mothers were trying to protect their daughters. But what are we doing with Cameroonians over here anyway? British officials looking into killing of 18-year-old in Syria. British officials say they're looking into the death of a British teenager in Syria. British media identified the teen as 18-year-old Abdullah Deghaze, who was due to go to university but had run away from his home in January. His brothers Jafar, 16, and 20-year-old Amer have also travelled to Syria. The teenager is the nephew of former Guantanamo Bay detainee Omar Deghaze, who was held at the detention camp as an enemy combatant between 2002 and 2007. Police say Friday that they received reports earlier this week that an 18-year-old from Brighton had been killed in Syria in recent weeks under unclear circumstances. Britain's Foreign Office say they're urgently looking into the death. British counter-terrorism authorities have expressed concern about the hundreds of Britons who have travelled to Syria to take part in jihad or holy war. World at 8. As long as they don't let his brothers back in the country, we may be able to sleep safer. No, I take that back. Ship all the young Muslims over there and get rid of once and for all. Another point, they are not British. Even on St George's Day, they ain't. European news. Italian Navy rescues hundreds more migrants. More than 1,100 migrants saved over Easter long weekend. More than 320 migrants were rescued by Italian Navy vessels from Monday from the seas south of the Sicilian island of Lampedusa, raising the total number saved over the Easter long weekend to more than 1,100 people. The latest arrivals, including about 70 women and children, were spotted by a Navy helicopter patrolling the Channel of Sicily and were taken to the port of Augusta in the province of Syracuse, located on the eastern coast of Sicily. Earlier in the weekend, more than 800 migrants, many fleeing North Africa, were rescued from 2 boats south of Lampedusa. All were saved by Italian ships through the Mare Nostrum surveillance and rescue programme established after the deaths of some 400 people in 2 migrant boat disasters near Lampedusa in October 2013. Last week, Interior Minister Angelino Alfano said that due to date this year, more than 20,500 migrants had already landed on Italy's coasts, an enormous increase over the 2,500 reported during the same period in 2013. Speaking before a committee on the country's borders, Alfano stressed that the number of incoming migrants was on pace to reach the record levels of 2011, when more than 62,000 people entered. Meanwhile, on Monday, authorities said that more than 300 migrants fled from an emergency holding centre for migrants near Ragusa, which, like other centres in Italy, had been overcrowded by a steady stream of illegal arrivals to Europe by sea. World at 8. Never thought the Italians that bright. Why save them? It's their choice to come, it's not compulsory. Netherlands. Immigrants bullied into leaving Hague district. Mayor pledges action. The Hague's mayor, Josias van Aalsten, and a local housing corporation have pledged to take action against a group of white residents in a working class neighbourhood who are bullying immigrants until they leave. The Dundalk neighbourhood, a pre-war neighbourhood close to Scheveningen harbour, hit the headlines this week after locals appeared on television saying they saw nothing wrong in trying to drive out foreigners. My son has been waiting for a house in Dundalk for 4 years, and then along comes a burqa with a man who has a dromedary and a camel. They get one within a week. Get lost. We don't want them here. One man, Nico de Henja, said on camera. Immigrants have complained about having their windows smashed and swastikas painted on the walls of their home, local housing corporation Vestia said. One family found a pig's head had been nailed to their door because they had the cheek to come and live here, the AD reports. World at 8. Poor piggy. Times are so tough in Italy that the mafiosi are considering getting jobs. Changing attitudes and lingering economic crisis are hitting the mafia where it hurts, say law enforcement authorities in Palermo, where a mob boss has been secretly recorded and complaining about the collapse of extortion rackets. Video cameras have shown jail Cosa Nostra boss Giovanni Di Giacomo lamenting that these days his men are only able to get a miserable €5,000 to €7,000 a month from hotels and businesses that he targets. He added that with so many establishments closing down and so many people refusing to pay and instead calling the police, it might not be worth the bother. Imna Kafar. I now hand you over to Imna Kafar, who talks today about the media and mainstream politicians from banking through immigration to terrorism.
Hi folks, Imna Kafar here. There appears to be a very serious problem arising in politics in the UK and in most of the democracies of Europe and the Western world. It would appear that increasing numbers of people are ceasing to agree with key tenets of what the ruling elites are saying. For all sorts of reasons that I do not find strange, they don't believe them in increasing numbers. I must say I find this absolutely shocking. After all, we all benefit from their incredible wisdom, acumen and self-interest. How can many not take our leader, our great leader, David Cameron, and his truly remarkable band of brothers and sisters, if they will pardon the expression, at their word? I forget the name of the one who is his sidekick, Clegg. Do not these ungrateful wretches appreciate the great suffering and mental anguish that these people put themselves through so they can benefit themselves? Apparently these are caring, lovely and gentle people who put class interests to one side in the interests of those they care about, in particular their own families and their banker friends. They have gone to great lengths to put the minds of the general population to rest or to sleep by the use of the mainstream media, in particular the BBC. They have promised to sort out the economy by making poor people pay for rich people and giving the banks loads of our money so they do not go broke and become a burden on the rest of us. What a laugh. Anyway, what's wrong with that? At least somebody benefits. Anyway, after all, where are all these poor people going to put their money if we have no banks? In any case, this problem is solved as poor people have no money to put into the banks. We are also an incredibly generous people who give away 12 billion a year to all sorts of foreign governments and other people, and where are they going to put all this money? In our banks. I must say, sometimes people's financial illiteracy boggles the mind. They have successfully tackled the problem of immigration, or will soon. So do not be so bloody impetuous, expect this problem to go away. After all, they have decided to rationalise the border agency for greater efficiency, and by having less of these people, we can expect to see the results in terms of even more immigration. So please stop banging on about this. They have also successfully tackled terrorism. That is now just a minor problem and one that will not return to haunt us. Well, not just now anyway. I think. Anyway, it will not affect them as they live in gated communities. This is something they recommend for all people who feel threatened by this minor problem. This problem is just a fly in the ointment for them, and those that try destroying community cohesion use it as an excuse to vilify these gentle and courteous people. They promote multiculturalism, I think, though Mr. Cameron said he does not, and has cleverly rebranded it as diversity. I must say I like diversity. I like curry and chips, or chips and curry, or Chinese food, or anything else come to that. So you can see that there are real benefits to this credo. Another thing springs to mind. Why did all these people in Parliament stop us from going to war with Syria? A lot of them happen to have shares in some leading defence contractors and have lost loads of cash because of these short-sighted people. In particular, they dislike Mr. Griffin, who put a right spoke in the works by his outright pacifism on this subject. Anyway, I've now said my piece and hope that those of you who are in two minds on all the various subjects I have explained here become converted to my way of explanation very soon. You know it makes sense.
Thank you very much, Eric. World news. Japan's whalers want to return to sea soon. The Japanese Organisation for Whalers proposes a change in programme to international community in exchange for the resumption of activities. They also seek an injunction against the environmental movement Sea Shepherd, which follows the whalers to boycott them at sea. World at 8, bomb the buggers and destroy those ships. These people are hell-bent on being as destructive as possible towards the whales. Surely they have better things to do, like oversee Fukushima. India recognises the third gender. Transgender people to get jobs, education quotas. India's Supreme Court recognised transgender people as a third gender in a legal landmark Tuesday. The court granted a raft of basic rights to those who identify themselves as neither male nor female. It's the right of every human being to choose their gender, it said. The court ordered the government to provide transgender people with quotas as in jobs and education like those for other minorities. Special amenities should also be laid on, it said. India is estimated to have some 2 million transgender people. Herja is a common term used to describe transgender people, transsexuals, cross-dressers, eunuchs and transvestites. Thought for the day. Our land of milk and honey, or the rise of the Leviathans. This is something which answers a lot of questions that must bug some people in this country. Why is everything we buy nowadays from the pound shops and up to the upmarket department stores like Army and Navy made in China? Why are we buying, say, shoes made in the People's Republic of China when England used to be the hub of the man-made and decent leather shoes before Spain took over that dubious title and imported crap to Nigeria? I was lucky enough to get a voucher to spend in A&N and I needed new shoes. In days of old, when I was living in Camberley, our local A&N always had an expensive and good British-made or European-made shoes. But now, oh dear, they are all made in China, and with the usual ghastly and unsupportive arches and a label on which shoes are for the right foot and which the left. The whole smell of these imported shoes and boots are different. They've done away with half sizes, which means you either float in a larger size or walk about looking like your feet have been bound for years. Lovely. So much for the UK argument of choice. There's no choice where there's just one manufacturer on offer. Well, it would seem the Western world has gone mad. Yes, completely and utterly mad. Our governments have been spouting about British jobs for British people, which, as we know, encompasses practically all of mankind on our shores, whilst busily selling off or stripping our industries for foreign owners, who keep a workforce on for about 2 years and then sell the lot or move overseas. There seems to be no monitoring of the way a foreign power can buy, own or sell us anymore, if there ever was. I find this hard to understand. As being an old colonial power, you'll find that even our old third world colonies apply certain rules to foreign ownership within their own countries. In short, you must buy Chinese and Indian goods if in the States or the UK, but you cannot manufacture them yourself or buy property in their countries. It all seems heavily biased towards the non-white populations, and Europe is heading that particular battle, namely the Danes. Now, this is a news item which is old, but none publicised in the media, and the Danes have and are producing huge container ships which dwarf everything else that has been seen so far. They require only 13 crew, run fairly cheaply compared to the old ones, and constantly run, bringing cheap goods to the US and by virtue of that to us, as they are running for Walmart and our Asda. I quote, "These ships were commissioned by Walmart to get their imported goods from China. They hold an incredible 15,000 containers and have a 207-foot deck beam. The full crew is just 13 people on a ship longer than a US aircraft carrier, which has a crew of 5,000. With its 207-foot beam, it is too big to fit through the Panama or Suez canals. It is strictly trans-Pacific. Cruise speeds 31 knots. The goods arrive in 4 days before the typical container ship, 18 to 20 knots, on a China to California run. 91% of Walmart products are made in China, so this behemoth is hugely competitive even when carrying perishable goods. The ship was built in 5 sections. The sections are floated together and then welded. The command bridge is higher than a 10-storey building and has 11 cargo crane rigs that can operate simultaneously, unloading the entire ship in less than 2 hours. A documentary in late March 2010 on the History Channel noted that all of these containers are shipped back to China, empty. Yup, that's right, we send nothing back on these ships. What does that tell you about the current financial state of the West in crisis? So folks, just keep on buying these imported goods, mostly gadgets, until you run out of money. Then you may wonder what the cause of unemployment is, maybe even your job in the US, UK, Canada and even Australia. Enough said. Now this will be bad enough, but they've been running since 2006, which means around 8 years, and you must have noticed that Chinese-made crap has increased during that time in our land of milk and honey. Containers can bring in cars, clothes, even food, and of course more Chinese immigrants with ease and are probably doing just that. You can actually move an entire army over a short period of time this way. Don't think for a moment this method could not be utilised for military purposes. I cannot think of any other civilization that would stop all home-based manufacturing and provide the means to another civilization, thousands of miles away, to take it on and get another European country to make the means of moving what could be the destruction of the Western world so bloody easy. Are they mad, bad, or just plain greedy? Even Neanderthal man knew you kill what you eat and you use all of that kill. You form loyalties to your own kith and kin, even for protection only. Strangers are killed or bred from. You own land and you fight to keep it. They were primitives, but life was simple for them in that it had rules and you didn't break those rules. Only nowadays, when we pay around £1 for 2 litres of fresh milk from our own cows, which makes it hardly worthwhile keeping the poor animals except for slaughter, yet we pay more for foreign grown and suspect foods that have to be shipped into our country on a regular basis, because we all think we're worth it, when in fact we are not. Anyone who votes can thank themselves for the ruinous business and farming practices that are demolishing our country and its people today, this St George's Day. These huge leviathans will be the norm soon, and of course the UK will jump on its bandwagon, and yet still more people will lose jobs and livelihoods. The media will keep up its tripe about more jobs coming into the market, but of course not for the English, as we're too lazy or too old or too uneducated. And of course there is an element of truth in this. All the polytechnics and farming colleges have gone, whilst false nails and rap have become the new pinnacle of cool. The Chinese must be laughing their little flat feet off in their expensive US or European made leather shoes whilst getting into their rollers. We're talking about a people who think nothing of slaughtering 10,000 dogs in Yulin to celebrate some solstice or another. Hardly a civilised action. Just imagine where the fur trim on Anishka's coat comes from, or little Damien's fur trim booties. Looking into the history of Walmart is interesting, but apart from a couple of Jewish names on the board and the fact that Hillary Clinton is also a member of the board, I cannot find a Zog plot anywhere. But of course, like all large supermarket businesses, there's always a connection. They bought Asda as well in the UK, so of course that supermarket is selling these goods brought into the States and re-exported to us. The huge leviathans are under the Maersk banner and are being produced today for tomorrow. But Walmart, like all mega-rich and successful operations, is of course the diversity bundle, and in January 2006 Walmart announced that diversity efforts include new groups of minority, female and gay employees that meet at Walmart headquarters in Bentonville to advise the company on marketing and internal promotion. There are 7 business resource groups: women, African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans, gays and lesbians, and a disabled group. I'm personally never against any person or business making money. It's human nature. But it is not human nature to quietly demolish your own country's infrastructure and pay through the nose to a different people to replace it after a fashion. It is wrong. It's just plain wrong. And the fact that what I have said is not well known shows just how wrong it is and how secret its progress. And finally, elderly couple visiting the Holy Land. A man and his ever-nagging wife went on vacation to Jerusalem. While they were there, the wife passed away. The undertaker told the husband, "You can have her shipped home for $5,000, or you can bury her here in the Holy Land for $150. The man thought about it and told him he would just have her shipped home. The undertaker asked, "Why would you spend $5,000 to ship your wife home, when it would be wonderful to be buried here and you'd only spend $150? The man replied, "Long ago a man died here, was buried here, and 3 days later he rose from the dead. I just can't take that chance." You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very happy St George's Day and a very good night.